An 86-year-old man watches as a young man collapses on the sidewalk. Could this be his chance for redemption? His experienced hands move with precision while everyone else just stands by. No one expected that the elderly man, overlooked by all, would be the one to save the life of someone who had disrespected him just a week earlier. Thomas Mitchell walks slowly down Maple Street. His steps are steady, his posture still upright despite the 86 years behind him. It's a quiet Tuesday morning in the residential neighborhood. Houses with small gardens line both sides of the street. He stops in front of his 1998 Buick. Thomas runs his hand gently along the body of the car. It's been his companion for more than 2 decades. He opens the driver's door. The leather seat creaks softly as he settles in. He adjusts the rear-view mirror, checks the seatbelt, starts the engine carefully. The Buick purrs quietly, just like it always has. Thomas drives slowly down Maple Street. His hands grip the wheel firmly. He knows every speed bump, every curve, every traffic light. He's lived in the neighborhood for 40 years. At the corner of Oak Avenue, he stops at a red light. Traffic is normal for a weekday. A few cars pass by. Pedestrians cross the street. Thomas waits patiently. The light turns green. He gently accelerates, turning onto Oak Avenue. It's a maneuver he's done thousands of times. The Buick moves forward calmly. Then it happened. A black Aston Martin V12 Vantage comes flying in from the right. Its engine roars as it cuts across Thomas's right-of-way. The young driver is looking down at his phone. Thomas hits the brakes. The Buick skids slightly on the damp morning asphalt, but it's not enough. The Aston Martin slams into the Buick's right side. The impact echoes down the quiet street. Metal crashing against metal, glass shattering and flying across the ground. Thomas feels his body jolt to the left. His hands stay on the wheel. His heart races, but he keeps calm. He shuts off the engine, takes a deep breath. A man in his mid-20s steps out of the Aston Martin. Fresh haircut, expensive sneakers, leather jacket. He looks at his car, then at the dented Buick. Thomas slowly opens his door, steps out, checking himself for injuries. He moves his arms and legs. Nothing broken, just some discomfort in his neck. The young man walks over. His first words aren't filled with concern. "Man, didn't you see me coming?" Thomas looks at him. He doesn't answer right away. He walks around the Buick, assessing the damage. The right side is dented, the glass shattered, the front fender twisted. "Sorry, sir," the young man adds, but his tone lacks sincerity. "You should really be paying more attention when you drive." Thomas stops. He looks at the traffic light, still green in his direction. He sees the skid marks from the Aston Martin clearly in his lane. Other cars begin to pull over. Curious drivers get out to see what happened. A middle-aged woman walks up. "Is everyone all right?" she asks. The young man gestures toward his car. "My V12's all smashed up. And honestly, it wasn't even my fault. That old man just can't drive anymore." More people gather at the corner. A man in his 30s, a neighbor from down the street, shakes his head when he sees Thomas in that situation. The son of Mrs. Bertha, the same Bertha Thomas knows from church, leans in and whispers to his mother. "Maybe it's time he stopped driving. It's getting dangerous." But the truth is Thomas had never been in an accident before. The young man from the Aston Martin crosses his arms and turns to Thomas. "Your time has passed, sir. Now it's time to leave the road to people who still have fast reflexes." Thomas feels the weight of the stares. People he's greeted for years on these sidewalks. Neighbors who always reply to his good morning with a smile. Now they look at him like he's a burden. "I had the right of way," Thomas says quietly but firmly. The young man chuckles. Sure. Everyone says that. No offense, but maybe it's time to hand in your license. It's for everyone's safety." The neighbors murmur in agreement. Thomas realizes no one is going to question the young man's version of the story. A police officer arrives. He's young, probably around the same age as the Aston Martin driver. He takes down the basic information, but Thomas quickly notices how the report is being shaped against him. "Were you the one who couldn't brake in time?" the officer asks. Thomas explains the situation. The officer writes it down without much interest. The young man adds a few details that aren't true, but they sound convincing. "Look," the officer says to Thomas. "No disrespect, but it might be a good idea to get checked out. See if you're still fit to drive." Thomas signs the accident report. The blame is marked as undetermined, but everyone around knows exactly what they believe. Old Thomas Mitchell shouldn't be behind the wheel anymore. The tow truck arrives to take the Buick. Thomas watches as his companion of over 20 years is hauled away. The dented side looks like an open wound. The young man from the Aston Martin is already on the phone with his insurance, already scheduling repairs, already making plans to get his car looking brand new. Thomas stands there on the sidewalk alone. The neighbors drift away, whispering to one another about the crash. No one asks if he needs help. Thomas walks the 6 blocks back to his house. Each step feels heavier than the last. The young man's words echo in his mind. "Your time has passed." He walks inside and closes the door. Thomas sits in the living room armchair. He stays there for a while just staring at the wall. In the days that follow, Thomas avoids leaving the house. He cancels his weekly coffee meeting with the men from church. The next Tuesday, he's in the kitchen making coffee when he hears a familiar sound, the soft purr of an engine. Through the window, he sees the Buick being parked in his driveway. The repairs are flawless. The right side looks brand new. But Thomas doesn't feel like driving. He calls the insurance company. They confirm everything is settled. The damage has been fixed, though they only covered half the cost of the repair. Thomas hangs up the phone. He looks out the window at his restored car. It feels like he's looking at a stranger. Throughout the week, he watches the neighbors walk by on the sidewalk. Some wave politely, but Thomas notices the difference. The greetings are quicker. Some shake their heads as if he had done something terribly wrong. Faced with their judgment, for the first time in decades, he truly feels old. It's a Thursday morning when Thomas decides to go out for a walk. He needed to move. He needed fresh air. He walks down Maple Street. He passes the corner where the accident happened. The skid marks are gone now, washed away by the rain. There's no sign anything ever happened there. Thomas keeps walking. 2 blocks ahead on Oak Avenue, he notices a commotion. People are rushing toward the sidewalk. Someone yells, "Call an ambulance." He quickens his pace. A small crowd is gathering around someone lying on the ground. Thomas gets closer and sees who it is. It's the young man from the black Aston Martin V12 Vantage. The same one who crashed into his car. The young man is on the ground, pale, sweating, hands shaking. He tries to speak, but his words are slurred. His eyes roll back. His body begins to convulse slightly. A woman is kneeling beside him, trying to help, but it's clear she doesn't know what to do. Another man holds a phone, speaking with emergency services. "The ambulance is on its way," he shouts. But the young man isn't stabilizing. The convulsions won't stop. Thomas recognizes the signs immediately. He's seen this before. No one else knows what to do. They're trying, but without basic first aid knowledge. Will this veteran's skills turn the tables on his past humiliation? Thomas steps forward. He kneels calmly beside the young man. "Excuse me," he says to the woman trying to help. Thomas takes off his own jacket, folds it, and gently places it under the young man's head to protect it like a pillow. Then, with care, he turns him onto his side to help him breathe and prevent aspiration, making sure his airway stays clear. Thomas speaks in a calm, steady voice. "You're going to be okay. Just try to breathe with me." His hands move with precision. He checks for signs of head trauma. He might have fallen before the seizure started. Slowly, the young man begins to regain consciousness. He's entering the postdictal phase. "What's your name?" Thomas asks. "Ethan," the young manages to say, still weak. "Ethan, you're safe. I'm right here. The ambulance is on its way." The ambulance arrives 5 minutes later. The paramedics jump out and rush over. Thomas steps back to give them space, but stays close. "What happened?" asks the lead paramedic. Thomas calmly explains the symptoms he observed. He describes exactly what he did to help. He gives precise details about the young man's condition over the past few minutes. The paramedic looks at Thomas with genuine interest. "Do you have medical training?" "I was an army nurse," Thomas replies. The paramedics place Ethan on the stretcher. He's stable now, fully conscious. Just before being loaded into the ambulance, Ethan reaches out and grabs Thomas's arm. "Thank you," he whispers. His eyes look different now. No arrogance, only genuine gratitude. Thomas gives a small nod. He watches the ambulance drive away. The neighbors who witnessed it all begin to approach. The woman who had tried to help earlier holds out her hand. "Hi, I'm Carol Henderson." Thomas shakes her hand. "Thomas Mitchell, you saved his life," she says. "If you hadn't been here, I don't know what might have happened." Thomas shakes his head. Anyone would have done the same. But everyone knows that's not true. No one else knew what to do. No one else stayed calm and acted with that kind of knowledge. An older man who's lived on the street for years steps forward. "Thomas, I had no idea you had medical experience." "I picked up a few things serving this country," Thomas replies. The people around him begin to see Thomas differently. Not as the old man who might not be fit to drive anymore, but as someone capable, someone with a life full of experience they never imagined. In the days that follow, the story spreads through the neighborhood. Thomas Mitchell, the veteran from Maple Street, saved the life of a young man who just a week earlier had said his time had passed. The next week, Ethan returns to the neighborhood driving his Aston Martin. He asks around for Thomas's address. When he finds the house, he knocks on the door. Thomas answers. Ethan looks different, humble, respectful. "Mr. Mitchell," he begins. "I came to apologize for the accident, for what I said. I was wrong." Thomas invites him inside. They sit in the living room. Ethan explains he lives not far from where it happened and that he'd forgotten to take his anti-seizure medication that day. "The doctor said you did exactly what needed to be done. Because of you, I didn't suffer any complications." Thomas listens quietly. "I want to pay for the repair on your car." Ethan continues. "And I want you to know I was wrong about the accident. You had the right of way. I wasn't paying attention." Thomas studies the young man. He sees sincerity in his eyes. "There's no need," Thomas says. "The car is already fixed." "But I insist," Ethan replies. "I was in the wrong. And after the way I treated you, you still saved my life." Thomas stands, walks to the window, and looks at the Buick in the driveway. His finances weren't great. Paying for half the repair had set him back. "All right," he says at last. "I'll accept." When Ethan leaves, Thomas stays on the porch watching the street. For the first time in weeks, he feels like driving the Buick again. Thomas grabs his car keys. He walks to the garage, opens the door of the Buick, and settles into the driver's seat. The familiar leather wraps around him like an old friend. He starts the engine. That familiar hum calms him. He slowly backs out of the driveway. On the street, a few neighbors wave. Thomas waves back. He drives down Maple Street, passes the corner where the accident happened. The weight of that moment no longer lingers. As he drives his 1998 Buick, he looks around the neighborhood. The same place where just a week ago he was judged and dismissed. But now he understands something essential. A person's strength doesn't show when everything is going well. When life is easy and the road is smooth. True strength reveals itself exactly when it feels like you have nothing left to give. When everyone around you doubts what you're still capable of. And yet, even at 86, Thomas carried within him all the strength he needed to rise to the moment and help someone in need. Because Thomas had come to understand something deeply true. Sometimes you never know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. If you enjoyed this story, let us know in the comments what you thought. And don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to Graceful Valor Stories so you won't miss what's coming. Subscribe to Graceful Valor Stories, where quiet strength is celebrated, and every hero story finds a voice.